Well, good afternoon, all, and welcome to the BOOMI and UBIX thought leadership discussion on artificial intelligence, or AI, as you might hear it called. There's a lot of conversation happening around a number of things: generative AI to increase productivity, AI with current applications for increased efficiency. I'm sure you've heard about function-specific GPTs or agents, building custom models. There are so many different ways that we could go with this, but today we're going to talk about how businesses should be thinking about AI in a more practical sense. Like, what are practical steps that businesses can be taking to engage more with AI, and maybe even look a little into the future of how to prepare for whatever advancements are still yet to come. So my name is Patricia Moore. I am a solutions strategist for the BOOMI Innovation Group. Prior to working at BOOMI, I served as an adjunct professor for Virginia Commonwealth University's graduate program in product innovation. And BOOMI serves as my first foray into the tech industry after a 10-plus year career across a variety of industries: entertainment, food and beverage, nonprofit sectors. So I come with a very different perspective. I like to say my role at BOOMI is part technology developer, but part business analyst. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation that sort of addresses both of those personas, but through the lens of AI. So I'm going to be today's discussion moderator. And if you're not familiar with BOOMI, we are the pioneers of the cloud-based integration platform as a service, which is also sometimes referred to as iPaaS. So today we not only help you connect your data between applications, but we also help you discover, manage, and govern your data for faster outcomes rooted in trusted information, which is what we all want. And I'm thrilled to host an engaging discussion today with my colleague, the head of research, architecture, and emerging technology and AI strategy for the BOOMI Innovation Group, Mike Bachman, affectionately referred to by his peers as just Bachman. He has over 2 decades of expertise encompassing AI R&D, data pipeline development, infrastructure planning, application integration, performance analysis, and the exploration of nascent technologies. He's assisted executives and their teams in overcoming complex obstacles through innovative tech solutions, which is what we're going to talk about today. So today he is talking to John Burke, who is the chairman and CEO of UBIX. UBIX is both an AI and advanced analytics platform that was created to bring those powerful tools to every business. So John started his career in mergers and acquisitions at PricewaterhouseCoopers almost 30 years ago. John has a long career in the data analytics world, beginning in 1999 at Webside Story. Webside Story pioneered SaaS-based web analytics and eventually became what is known today as Adobe Analytics, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. So John has extensive experience as a CEO with corporate acquisitions and in turnarounds of struggling companies. These experiences led him to co-found UBIX approximately 7 years ago with the idea of bringing AI to every business. So hopefully after today's discussion, we can bring it to your businesses. So let's dive in. Good afternoon, gentlemen. First, let's sort of set a baseline for our audience. I would love for each of you to briefly describe how you define AI and what you think are 1 or 2 of the most important trends to pay attention to at this moment. And just so we don't talk over each other, I'm first going to throw to Bachman if you want to answer that question.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Patricia. John, good to be with you here today as well. All of our audience. So I don't even know what intelligence is, let alone what artificial intelligence is at this point. But that said, I think AI is really defined as a category. It's sort of I would say, a theme of modern technology, as it's based upon previous ways to train data, to learn from it, and to derive outcomes. And so I think of AI as a computational platform itself. And the idea with this computational platform is iteratively, since its development in really the 50s, 60s, and beyond, it is a way now that we can scale the computation of a whole bunch of different factors in ways that humans can't. So I often think of AI as a rules-based system that has speeds and scales that humans can no longer keep up with. And so with this computation, AI is developing patterns and can see patterns in data that are simply unfathomable. And the more we create data, the more patterns will emerge, and AI will be more likely to find it than we will. So that said, AI is a complex type of environment, but or a type of theme to think about. But this category of artificial intelligence includes things like machine learning, deep learning, reinforced deep learning, generative deep learning, and so on. And those different categories of different types of computational platforms allow us to achieve different types of outcomes at speeds and scales, again, that we can't fathom as humans.
Not overwhelming at all. Not overwhelming at all. John, what do you think? Do you have anything sort of to add?
Yeah, so I always try and take a step back and approach it from a high level and then kind of dive into some more of the details. And at BOOMI, you did a great job there. But what I always look at is kind of people ask us like, well, what is AI and how do we get involved in it, right? And so when I look at AI, I always try and tell people that say, okay, AI's goal is really to, in certain areas, be greater than or equal to human beings, right? And in that pursuit, you look at kind of what is a human being, right? What are some of our qualities that are great that we're trying to emulate within the software work, right? And that qualities are, we're insightful, we're creative, we can be have great reasoning capabilities, some more than others, right? So but those great qualities around problem solving, creativity, etc., are wonderful human qualities, right? And then you look over here is what are machines naturally good at? And machines are naturally good at their ability to process very large, vast amounts of information. They do it consistently. They can run vast amount of calculations that are extremely complex, right? That would take a human being very long amount of times, and even an army of human beings, almost an impossible way of keeping up with the scale that a computer can, right? And so the two strengths are kind of being merged together of giving some of these human type capabilities to the natural capabilities of machines, right? And the stuff that Bachman was talking about, I always say that think of AI, because a lot of times people have a lot of confusion. It's like machine learning AI is, what's this deep learning? What's all these different things? I say, think of AI as a box, right? And you've got this box, and on the moving box in the front, it says AI, right? And inside that box is another box of cool tools that's called machine learning, right? And inside of that machine learning, you can take things that are supervised, such things as linear regression, classification, et cetera. And unsupervised learning could be like clustering for customer segmentation. And then another really cool one is like reinforcement learning. Like I always say, think of it as like a little baby robot that's trying to learn and experience life for the first time. And it has a specific purpose. It was built for a specific purpose. And you're rewarding it with treats of when it does something well, and you're giving it a little bit of punishment when it does it wrong, right? And so over time, this baby grows up just like we have in life to learn and experience new things. And so reinforcement learning is also a very powerful tool. But then when you dive into like a sub box within that area is this category of neural networks, deep learning, et cetera. And this is an area that has been getting a lot of fame, right? Around foundational models such as large language models, ChatGPT and Gemini or Bard and things like that are doing really cool discovery, right? And they're trying to define the world of information, and it feels almost magical how you interact with it, right? And also the same thing with audio and video and other unstructured things. But if you look at it, these are all capabilities of AI, right? And they're all a powerful box. And so what UBIX has done is we basically have built that box, right? And in a cloud environment that allows you to experience and play with all those tools, right? But the overall goal, the trend that we think is most important, is the trend that is your goals, right? As a business, right? These are all capabilities, right? So wonderful capabilities, but depending on your goal, dictates what tool you use within the box, right? And so they're all important, and you can do things that are layering. Let's say I was wanted to build a really accurate forecast, and I said, I want to do clustering around understanding customer types and customer behaviors. Then I'm going to use those customer types combined with product sales and build a forecast that's based on customer type and product, right? I'm going to build a very accurate forecast using techniques of time series like Surima, LSTM, XGBoost, et cetera, right? That are these magical tools that do a very powerful job of forecasting with great accuracy. So you can layer these capabilities to come to an outcome. So we always try to approach things with, tell us your goals, your dreams. What are the things that are challenging your business? And AI by itself is a powerful capability, but the trend that you need to care about is what tool is going to be the most impact for your business.
That's so powerful. I feel like so many companies are overwhelmed by the conversations on AI. And instead of trying to figure out how can I use AI to help solve my business problems, they see interesting technology and they say, how can I apply that to my business? Yeah. Which is a backwards conversation, right? You're supposed to be figuring out what tools are there and advancements with AI that can help me solve a problem I have already identified and know that we need to solve. So thinking about that,
they're cool toys. They're very cool toys to play with, but you're in the business of business. And so let's use the right toys for the job, right?
Exactly. There's just all this pressure for businesses to not get left behind. And I think people get excited about that, right? And so in that excitement, they forget to focus on like, what are the goals for their business? So in conjunction with thinking about the business goals, what would you say is sort of like the single most important fact for companies to understand as they prepare to embark on this AI journey? So instead of, they know the facts about their company, but what are some facts that they should know about artificial intelligence that would help them to sort of start the journey of which tools should I be looking at to solve my business problems? I'm going to throw it back to John first.
Yeah, so I won't steal Bachman's thunder on the foundational pieces of why data is important, right? So I'll leave that for my friend on the other side of the screen, but I will drop that, starting with a great foundation of data, and think of it as like these pipes that are moving data, right? And then what you really want to do is, the big lesson that we want to kind of convey to people is that a lot of people don't know necessarily where to start with AI, and they're powerful tools like we just talked about. But what we always like to say is that people feel like they have to build this technology, right? And the biggest thing that we want to help people on is that you don't, unless you're in the business of AI, you probably shouldn't be building an AI platform, right? If you're in the business of selling products and doing consulting or whatever it is, use AI to better your business. But so many of the cloud providers and engineering outfits are saying, we'll help you build it, right? That's a very long process and very expensive. And we've, on the other side of these implementations, a lot of them have failed, right? Because you need talents in the area of distributed computing and cloud engineering and all these amazing technologies in Kubernetes and Docker and Carpenter and all these things that most traditional IT organizations have never worked with before, right? And so it's a really big challenge in an area that you also need data engineers and integration specialists, and you need data scientists and data analysts and subject matter experts and application builders, right? So in order to build this thing, it's millions of dollars, right? And could be years of effort, right? So only the very big companies are able to consume these amazing toolbox, right? And so our whole focus, along with BOOMI, is to make this journey easier for you, so you can focus in on getting to outcomes and not going down an engineering road to nowhere, right? Is you can get up and running same day with BOOMI and UBIX and start solving problems tomorrow.
Well, I just want to point out something you just said. What you just said there, John, is the cornerstone for this concept called democratization. If you're not going to build it, we're at a point in history now where you don't have to build all of these things the way they had been done for the past decades, right? Yeah. You can take advantage of AI and your domain knowledge without having to build all of these systems. And so what you just said was, now we have a way to plug into your knowledge base, your data, and then allow platforms of artificial intelligence to help out customers achieve, or anybody achieve their goals. And that is true democratization as far as I'm concerned. I also like the way you said, because I agree with it. Do what you're good at. Let AI platforms do the work for you. Yeah. And before, I said AI is, to me, a computational platform. And we are at a point in history where we can leverage many different tools. Everything that you talked about before, whether you're talking about, XG Boost, Add Boost, anything like that, like who cares? Customers want their outcome, whether you're, classifying, categorizing, clustering, predicting, prescribing, whatever you're using AI for to achieve an ultimate goal. We're at a point in history now where you can talk and communicate with AI in natural language, and then out the other side comes a result. And whether that result is right or not really is up to you as the consumer of that conversation or the producer of that conversation.
Yeah.
To be able to interact with these tools and to be able to have them is great. I want to now touch on a point, Patricia, of what you were saying before. What do we need to know foundationally to get ready for AI? Well, I love the idea of do what you do really well, because I think that theme is going to carry over for, going from here on. But I often like to consult on AI readiness, what it means to be AI ready in general. Before we get to algorithms, before we get to understanding the inner workings of different types of AI, we first have to understand, do we have the fundamentals ready today that are going to take advantage of the AI systems that we have for your goals tomorrow? And so there are really 6 tenets that, that myself, along with dozens of other folks, CIOs around the country, really around the world, have helped develop, and that's called the 6 tenets of AI readiness. 3 of those tenets have to do with people. 3 of them have to do with processor platforms. And so the processor platform tenets are know your data, know your processes, and automate with intention. And so AI is operating at speeds and scales beyond human capacity, capability, and imagination. And so the idea is, or arguably imagination, and the idea is, if you understand how your processes work, well-documented processes, hopefully, which very few of you might actually document and keep up with your documentation on this. Know your data, and then you're in a position where you can automate and you can feed the AI the speed and different types of data that you have, and it can start to make sense of these patterns and then get you toward the outcome that you desire. It's not always easy, but it's a heck of a lot easier than it ever was. And I think with platforms like integration platforms like our own, with AI platforms that allow you to have, as John said, all of these boxes together to help you sort through all of your data, you've got kind of a powerful 1-2 punch, available to you now to democratize AI.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. So when companies know their data, they know their processes, and they have automated with intention, they're AI ready. What are the main ways that you have seen companies then successfully embrace AI to help move their businesses forward at an accelerated pace? Like they're ready, and then what happened?
Yeah, right. So the interesting thing, John, I think, stepped through a lot of different types of tech, different types of boxes within boxes. It's like almost like a nested doll situation, right? But companies with generative AI, which is one of those boxes inside of deep learning, inside of machine learning. When we're talking about generative AI, very few companies on the whole have really deployed Gen AI into production, yet it has the most capability because it can look at unstructured data. For those that have, they know their processes well. They have great goal alignment all the way from the top of the organization down. So this is a tenet for, have clearly articulated goals. And this goes from the top stakeholder, in the company or in the organization, all the way down to the person who's the knowledge worker implementing the technology, and then to the consumers as well. If that goal is clearly understood, that creates for a fast track to get everything AI ready. Another thing with people make the difference. And so when people are aligned to that goal and have concrete ways to measure the accuracy of what's being produced, the effectiveness of what's being produced. That too is great. And the reason why is because you can know your processes, you can know your data, you can automate with intention, but if the people aren't aligned, then it's going to inhibit any type of action that's going on. So these are two people functions of being AI ready. And I think, between people, process, and platforms, the sort of those areas, if the people are working well together, they know what they're going after, they understand how to do the work, or at least how to give the work to the AI system to actually do the work, and then they know how to refine the work, that's when things are going well. And just to give you an example of that, a couple of examples, if you want to minimize risk to your supply chain, these are all things that we can do today, as an example. That is going to require pipelining data. It's going to require an AI system. It's going to require risk scoring and risk analysis, which often is generated with recursive AI. And it's going to require knowing how to measure, how people should be measuring the efficacy of whatever pipelines they're building. And so that's one example. Another one is a knowledge information system. Really low-hanging fruit ways that you can have your internal consumers of the data, i.e. your employees, access information internally, as well as your customers that just want to find something more easily than they've ever been able to do. This is another implementation strategy that's really good. Those are two of dozens, maybe even hundreds of different use cases that we can think of. But to your point, when they're AI ready, what does good look like? Good looks like well-articulated goals, understanding all of the things that we've talked about so far, and making sure you have a way to measure so that you can manage the outcomes properly.
Yes, measurement. We want to make sure the things that we're doing, we can understand the impact, right? So not just thinking about like, what are the goals that you want the AI to help you reach, but also like, how are you going to measure yourself on those goals? I feel like that's super important. John, what about you? Are there any sort of success stories you want to share?
Yeah, so we since all we do is AI, right? So we have a unique perspective of seeing how people are using these things in novel ways, right? And so this is ranging from anywhere from, let's say, marketing, where you're looking at trade promotions or return on ad spend, or media mix modeling, and being able to make real-time decisions of what's going on, but also in web analytics, where you have a very real-time world, right? So inside of UBIX and other AI platforms, if you built out an AI infrastructure, you should be able to interact with a real-time world, right? So UBIX can do both, like have real-time streaming data around sessions coming into UBIX, so we can understand things like frustration within a form on a web page that leads to an abandonment, or fraud, or bot detection, right? So it understands it's a bot. It can block form assertion attacks and other things like that. So there's things that you can look based on the behaviors of the features going on in real time. And overarching like marketing thing, we have a big use case around dynamic audiencing, right? So allowing yourself to kind of come in and understand the audience in real time, right? And being able to serve up the capability and empower other systems that maybe aren't intelligent, right? So you can pass intelligence to a system, let's say a content management system that's governing the website. If you're directing it in a pattern and it knows that when I see this, I'm going to insert this ad, or I'm going to recommend a different page or something like that, I'm going to have some type of interaction that is dynamic, that's driven from intelligence, right? All of that stuff was built, let's say, in UBIX on top of your data foundation and everything like that, but it was brought to life and empowered other systems, right? So the whole thing, that the reason we're, the partnership between like BOOMI and UBIX is that you look at it from a standpoint of foundationally with like connecting these systems, but you actually can go and pass that through from UBIX into BOOMI to another system, right? And empower that system. It can be an ERP system where you're doing credit and collections, and you have predicted default models. So when they open the screen, it passes the variables over to the model and gets a real-time response, right? So it doesn't only impact the systems such as UBIX and BOOMI. that we're great conduits to empowering other systems. And so the variety of ways people use these different technologies is vast, right? So our taglines innovate wildly, because we want to encourage people to solve and do interesting things, on their own, right? And both BOOMI and UBIX are very similar in that you can do it all no code, right? So you're connecting to things in no code. You're interacting with your data store and profiles in no code, right? You're solving problems in models entirely in no code, and interacting with that box of goodies that we talked about at the beginning of this discussion. And so it just makes problem solving easier. And the whole thing around kind of the people, process, systems, and that overall AI readiness, UBIX, our methodology is to help you on that journey, right? Is that because a lot of times people are like, well, how do I use these technologies, right? So we have a goal mindset. So inside of UBIX, you can say, I've got this data, I've got this goal, and we call it, it basically will guide you through what types of techniques are applicable to solve that goal, right? Still allows you to make the decisions and everything like that along the way, but it's really kind of those guardrails. It gives you don't need to look at everything in the box. You just need to look at the things that are applicable to that pursuit, right? Another way of solving problems that is a new innovation, and this is really embedded in the large language models, right? So we view large language models as a great way of capturing intent and a great way of interacting with technology, right? And that's why it's become so popular, and that's why it's been so talked about. But large language models are not as reliable as some of the other more machine learning techniques that we discussed in the box, right? So a lot of times it's a journey of discovery, right? And in a journey of discovery, you have to be okay with it being wrong frequently, right? Or doing something that you just don't understand, and it doesn't even know why it concluded that, right? And even the people that built it may not know, right? So that's a point of discovery, right? But businesses like to marry an engineered outcome. Like they want to know that something's going to work and it's explainable and I can validate it, right? So it's kind of a marriage between the different things in the box of using what we call chat UBIX, right? So you can interact with your ERP system and ask it, what were my top performing customers last year, or salespeople, or whatever it is, and it'll serve up the answer, right? So it allows you a medium of understanding and having a conversational AI experience, which people love, right? And so, we should run to innovations like language models and chat experiences, because anything that allows consumers to consume this great innovation, right? And business consumers, it allows them to run their business better and be able to get answers questions. Being a recovering public company CFO and COO, I was the place of information, right? So everyone was like, okay, I have a question. I'm calling John while he's at dinner with his kids, to get answers on this, right? So now with Chat UBIX, you can just ask it, and it'll give you, it's the virtual John, right? It can give you the answer on demand when you want it. And so there's just amazing technologies that you don't have to do it, work so hard. Like all businesses that we come into, they're all working really hard. They've got a lot of things that they're doing. This can be an easy journey for them.
So I want to touch on something you said. You said innovation is the process of discovery. So you kind of have to be ready for twists and turns. And so I'm sure nobody is out there implementing AI without some challenges. So are there any challenges that you see companies facing regularly as they try to implement these new AI strategies? So things people can sort of try to be ready for, that companies haven't seen coming as they start out trying to bring AI into their businesses.
The biggest challenge with implementing AI has little to do, or has less to do with the AI itself and more to do with everything around it. The first thing is communication. I think, I get asked, I conduct these workshops, all over the world. And, one of the first things that I say before bringing in folks in the workshop is, generative AI is one of the hottest things that everybody's talking about. How can line of business use it? All of that stuff. Well, if the line of business stakeholder doesn't talk with the operational stakeholder and they don't talk with IT, the people who are going to implement everything, and they don't have a constructive dialogue, that is an inhibitor to success. That's why alignment is important, right? And to understand the goal is important. It's these simple things that really inhibit how something's done. If we think of AI as a power drill, if you will, it has incredible capability to move at speeds and do a lot of things like drill a lot of holes or create a lot of outcomes in a very short window of time. If customers that have good, well-defined goals, great alignment, excellent process documentation, understand and trust their data that goes along with an existing process, AI should just be plugged in as an engine to make that process run faster and run more efficiently. And then you can iterate if you know how to measure and manage, manage that remeasurement, what the outcomes are. What I'm finding, however, in a lot of companies is that folks are using antiquated processes that are either or under documented. The last person who updated documentation, if there is any documentation at all, might have retired or moved on to a completely different place than she's at today, or she was at when this process was defined. And folks are left trying to figure out why things were done a certain way when they might not be applicable anymore. And then there's the complicated problem of understanding the data. Why are we getting the sources of data that we are to get to the outcome that we have? And while somebody might know what that is, not everybody is familiar with it. And again, these communication breakdowns are real inhibitors to making AI work well. If all of that stuff is in place and you can simply plug artificial intelligence into more and more areas of a given procedure, a process, a service, a function, whatever, then the goal would be to enhance whatever that process is. And so these are the types of things that tend to be the greatest inhibitors to implementing AI, and not the AI itself. The next thing I'll say, though, is if everything is smooth and you need to implement a model, the important thing is to understand how that model is updated, what frequency that model is updated, and so on. And so platforms like UBIX, as an example, are great ways to make sure that the model isn't the inhibitor to making AI usable, democratized, good, even great. But really, before it even gets there, if you don't know your process and you don't know your data and you're not communicating, there's a low likelihood that AI is going to make things better. It might make it far worse.
Yes, I agree with all of that, right? I mean, it's basically the thesis for why UBIX exists, right? Because there's a lot of complexity, and I kind of said this in the previous question, but if you look at all those points of what you need for, because you've got all the algorithms but what it takes to run those algorithms at scale is a whole different pursuit, right? So and IBM did a study that still holds true to this day. There was near 90% of models that have efficacy never reach production, right? So you've innovated, you've solved, you basically have been and the reason that is the case is that a lot of times the problem solving is outside the system. It's an ETL process. They're working with data that's not live. And it's in a dead data environment where they're interacting and they come up with a model, right? And data scientists are not engineers, right? They're scientists, right? They understand statistics and everything like that. But to run those models at scale is an engineered effort, right? And so you need to know how your cloud is going to scale, how it dynamically provisions resources and puts them away after they're done, right? And so you because it's this wild world in a live environment versus a dead environment, right? You can prove something out in a siloed information and say, oh, it's great, but it doesn't perform in the cloud. It doesn't scale well. It's not performant. It can't react in the speed of time to give you the answer in time for you to make the right decision, right? So there's so much additional complexity into bringing this stuff to life versus just solving the problem in a vacuum, right? And so that's what UBIX is. It's an intelligent cloud, right? And so all of those pitfalls and challenges are solved by UBIX that are highly engineered efforts, right? Like UBIX runs at a base state. And when you basically say, I want to go train 20 terabytes of information, it'll provision and scale out the amount of resources that are necessary to crank through that, right? It's not a static resource pool. It's dynamic. So you can really, in theory, scale to the power of the internet, right? And it'll just put them away once it's done, right? So it's efficient use of cloud, right? And so with these modern technologies and these modern AI systems, you need to have a modern cloud, right? And so the things are so tightly coupled that the problem with the infrastructure is 95% of the journey of AI, right? And so you're spending 95% of your dollars and time getting to an outcome that deal fatigue and project fatigue are fully set in. You've blown through all the budgets and you haven't even delivered one insight yet, right? And so with UBIX and BOOMI, you can be up and running the same day and spending 100% of your time on solving the problem and 0% on infrastructure. We've come in to bail out failed projects time and time again. The biggest one was $37 million spent, and UBIX outperformed it in every way, right? In innovation, in ability to roll out science. And so the reason we're, almost arrogant about this pursuit, and this is my, unapologetic plug for UBIX in this dialogue, is that it's because we want to prevent people from making the wrong mistake, right? Because these mistakes in this area are expensive. And so you want to go on the journey to basically set yourself up with the right foundation of data, but get into solving problems, not going on a road to nowhere engineering effort.
Yeah, I just want to say something else on that, Patricia, if I can. Oftentimes models get published for the amount of time that it takes these models to develop. I mean, data scientists are really good at what they do. And there are changes to the business that are very dynamic. And if a model is too static, by the time it's deployed, it's already outdated. And so having a platform where you can adjust to new changes in the environment quickly is great. And the model builders, to all of my data science friends out there and data engineers, you're all really good at what you do.
Yes.
Sometimes, however, there's changes in the business that weren't accounted for in any of the discovery that you were doing in order to create the model. And that too comes down to communication between the business and the engineers and the data scientists. But the idea too is if you don't have platforms that can offer flexibility to be able to grow, adapt, and be shaped by all of the stakeholders in a particular project or set of projects, this is also an inhibitor to AI as well, AI implementation in production as well.
So we have covered a lot of ground. And so now that we've given folks like a few tips on how they can sort of be AI ready and what they can expect, I think we should talk about maybe how will these kind of investments today affect their businesses in the future? So what can they look for? Obviously, we can't predict what's going to happen, but based on both of your knowledge, things that you've seen around, why is it so important for folks to make this investment today?
Want me to take that first one?
Yeah, you go ahead, John.
Well, I always say that the future is now, right? And all these capabilities are there at your fingertips now, right? So you can dramatically change your business working in a very live environment, working with companies like BOOMI and UBIX, where you can kind of connect in all your data stores and turn those siloed information, dead assets into, powerful gold. Right. And it is in a variety of different areas. These capabilities can solve a whole vast amount of problems. And we just give a kind of a perspective, right? We have clients that we look at kind of their analytics maturity, right? So when we come into a client, some of the times it's like, hey, I just need to get my data connected into one place. And so We got BOOMI that's streaming data now into, UBIX's data space, our big data store, right? Now we're going to go start on a journey of discovery to understand what are those data assets and what's going on. But a big part of that could be what is helpful, right? So even though there's this amazing capability where we're like, we can go and, predict and prescribe when you need to buy resources to meet your demands in the best, most efficient working capital. But we can also take all the things you're doing manually and automate them, right? So you can actually go through and, like, even though I'm a former public company CFO, and you'll pull Excel out of my cold dead hand, right? It's not a good system of record, right? It's not a good place for information to reside. So all of it's coming from information that's connected into your ecosystem, right? And you're then wrangling with it and changing it and coming up with some type of output. That's not AI, but in UBIX, you could actually go through a workflow and automate all of that, right? And build an application that allows people to interact with an application versus shipping spreadsheets around the world, right? And so that's a basic level that it greatly enhances your throughput and optimization of how you handle your resources. And then you now have layers of derived information that were not part of your source system. You've now derived new data that can be used in other pursuits because you're creating a layered effect of great analytic assets, right? So it doesn't have to be like we're sending a rocket to Mars, right? It can be just we are iterating and getting better and better and better. And the whole thing that with creating a live data environment with BOOMI, coming into UBIX and creating a playground to build insights and get benefits from your data, you're driving to a beautiful outcome that allows you to perpetually improve your business, right? And so I would say the future is this journey of perpetual improvement, but you got to start now, and so you can build that beautiful future, right? So the future is now. These technologies are available to you now, and you have helpful partners like UBIX and BOOMI that can help bring you there.
Yeah, and I like what you say there, John. I think the future is now. And the nice thing about that is that when you invest in the right type of platforms, that those should transcend different epochs of time. Yep. And so we've been around for 20 years, more than 20 years now, going through SOA, helping customers make the transition into sort of modern cloud-based integration. And now we're reinventing what integration needs to look like for the next generation. The cool thing is nobody has to throw out their investment. And that's that's BOOMI, that's UBIX, that's a lot of companies that have decided either early on or since the inception of their company to build off of cloud-based infrastructure. There's a lot of advantage in that as well. There's also advantage in being able to deal with systems that were designed for on-premises as well as cloud-based systems too. And so companies like ours are able to bridge those gaps as well. So if you're talking legacy systems or modern systems and anything along that journey, companies like ours endure. That's helpful. I'm going to go back to the original topic though, AI readiness, because if we think of AI as a computational system, pattern matcher, pattern finder, pattern revealer, whatever. It's a system that computationally creates, reveals, optimizes patterns that exist as it's presented with more and more data. Maybe that's the operative, definition of what AI really, the value that AI provides. But in order to get to that stage, if we don't know what our processes are, we don't document them well, we don't keep up with them, how can we place new, more modern systems into those existing processes? If we think of AI as a computational engine, we maybe swap out conventional computing with AI computing. Well, what happens 10 years from now when quantum computing becomes all of the rage because it can operate with far fewer resources doing infinitesimally more sets of operations. And the idea is that's a computational platform as well. Can we just swap this in and out for what was considered state of the art 10 years before it? Well, maybe. It depends. Do you know your process? Do you know your data? Do you trust your data? Do you know how your data is generated? Do you know what happens to your data from the time that you put it into a computational platform, and then whatever comes out the other side, and what actions you need to take there? These are the repetitive themes that if we really get down, we can have technologies like BOOMI, like UBIX, like lots of other technologies, maybe even our viewers own today. If they don't know those other systems, though, it makes it more and more difficult to be able to use better systems when they come along, if they don't understand the fundamentals within their environment.
Yep. Totally agree. And one, that piece that you just sparked in is understanding it's a trapping the knowledge of people of the past to what they did and everything like that. And a lot of the data science aspects are a bit of a black box, right? So you really don't always know. And sometimes we've had many times where people come to us and say, can you reverse engineer this thing that we no longer have control over, right? And it was like, of course, yes, right? But in UBIX and other modern systems, you have the full workflow. You know what data you came in. We work with a lot of banks, right? And so banks have model boards, and they look to make sure that certain features, they have certain laws around discrimination and other things like that. You need to make sure that your models are not touching any data that would lead them to conclude improperly, right? And so there needs to be that whole end-to-end lineage, right? And what you've seen in UBIX 1,000 times there, Bachman, is that lineage from what source system that you sent us data from, all the way through to what it concluded and what's being used in an application. You see everything through a graphical interface. And so you know exactly what decisions it made. You have all the metrics of the models that it trained. And so it gives full transparency to something that's traditionally a bit of a black box.
Right. And I do want to say something about that too, just to make sure that our viewers really understand this. Explainability is a big area of AI responsibility. And we're going to hear more about AI responsibility as the year goes on in a number of different ways. But one of those ways is explainability. And the better you know your process, the better you know your data sources, the better you know and can explain what happens in your models. That's all great. And even if you don't know, what the weights are in back propagation or what leads to back propagation in certain models, if you know as much around the inputs as you possibly can, you may not know exactly how the outcome an output was derived, at least as of January of 2024. But it's going to give you a lot more insight, and especially when you know how the data progresses from one stage to the next in an AI platform, that is super helpful. And like John said, whether you're talking about banks, you're talking about insurance, you're talking about any handoff between chain of custody, between one stage of value to the next, these are all really important facets to have as you create explainable systems of responsibility, which is really one of the major themes that we need to focus on with AI is responsibility.
It's important.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we could talk all day. That's getting into like ethical AI. Super important. But we're not going to keep the people here all day. I want to thank both of you, Bachman and John. This has been a great discussion. We've covered so much, and I hope that the folks watching have learned something new, have learned something actionable they can take back to their businesses. Just thinking back on like highlights for me, goal alignment was a huge one, clearly articulated goals, and having a plan to measure those goals, understanding that you don't need to build these AI tools. What companies need to do is know and trust their data, know their processes and document them, automate with intention, and get your communication, your lines of communication in order. If you can do those things, which I know you all can, BOOMI and UBIX can help take you the rest of the way. As John said, infrastructure is 95% of the challenge. we can do that part. If you can do the 5% of AI readiness, we can do the 95% infrastructure. So give us a call. Thank you both. Thank you, audience, for joining us. And we hope to be talking to a lot of you soon.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.